Hi there. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on when you're watching this. My name is Marc Feder. I'm a co-founder of Everyday. Thanks for joining my session. Thanks to Steve and his team at Learning Revolution for hosting the Emergency Home Learning Summit. What I want to talk to you today about is how to prepare for college without the pressure. So this is near and dear to my heart. On a personal level, I made the wrong choice. I chose the wrong major, the wrong school, ended up transferring. So I know the pain that can cause. But more importantly, I've spent years of my career working in test prep and admissions consulting, helping students apply to and get admitted to their dream colleges. I've worked side by side with former admissions officers, application readers, interviewers, and hope that I can impart some of my knowledge, nuggets of wisdom, some applicable takeaways for you to help your student, or if you are a student, to help you apply to college without the pressure. And how do we do that? I think it starts with reframing the conversation. So there's some great research out of an organization called Challenge Success. They're a nonprofit based out of Stanford University, and their mission is to do a lot of the theme of this conversation is reframe success as it relates to especially the college application process. So Challenge Success has done a survey and they asked a bunch of parents, hey, on an individual level, what do you value? And you get the answers that you'd expect: well-being and kindness and relationships, things you'd hope people say. What's interesting is when they were then asked, what is your community value? You're getting opposite kinds of answers, like grades and money and the prestige of the college the kid next door got into, which is interesting because there's a clear disconnect between how we see ourselves and our values and how we see the values of our community around us. But the thing is, we make up that community. So I think the first thing is it's incumbent upon us to reframe the conversation, because a lot of anxiety that students and teenagers are feeling these days stems from the pressure to get these good grades and get into a good school, but a lot of that is because they don't want to let their parents down. So if we have a conversation with our students, with our teenagers, starting as early as 8th or ninth grade, maybe even earlier, to reframe the conversation and set clear expectations with them to say, look, you're entering high school. It's a scary time. It's a big, life stage for teenagers in general. But as you might encounter some of this external and communal pressure to, take as many AP classes as you can, or it's all about the grades and what school you get into, as a parent, it's important to clearly set the expectation that's not how you define success. So, the second point of develop a growth mindset, like reward effort and let them know that that's what you value. It's okay to be a B student if that's who you are. Maybe you're not cut out to go to Harvard, and that's perfectly okay. Even if you got in there, you probably wouldn't enjoy it. So it's important, I think a lot of times people say, hey, you got to start preparing for college in 8th and ninth grade, but they're looking at it the wrong way. They're looking at it through the lens of you've got to go out and start taking as many extracurricular activities as you can and stockpiling your resume. But in my opinion, it starts with the parent, and around the time that a student is making that life transition, to set clear expectations and I don't know if boundaries is the right word, but letting them know that it's okay to fail, to go and explore and try new things and push the envelope, because ultimately if you're not failing, that means you're not pushing yourself hard enough, and failing does not mean you are a failure. So I think it's just really important to set the foundation, right? Start early, have that conversation, let them, the student, your child, know that you don't define their self-worth by their grades and their test scores, etc. But what I want to talk about today is this framework that we've developed at Everyday called CHILL, and it's an acronym which we'll explain what it stands for in a minute. But I'm sure someone out there might be thinking, yeah, this sounds good, Mark, but ultimately it's about grades. It's about the test scores, because that's what matters. That's what the schools want to see. Like, you look at the averages, right? But actually, not always the case. The statistics might be surprising, might not be. But I think it's a clear indication that if almost 2/3 of valedictorians are getting turned away, there's more to this process than having stellar grades or even a bunch of extracurricular activities, right? It's about making yourself interesting. What is unique about you, the student, compared to everybody else? This is straight from the mouth of the former head of Harvard here. And so, how do you do that, right? Like, how do I make my child interesting? Similar to reframing the conversation around the college application process, I think here it's important to reframe the question. It's not about how do you make your child interesting, but it's about helping them explore what they're interested in. And again, what I want to talk about today is a framework for how to do that. And so this CHILL framework stands for commitment, happiness, impact, and leadership. So let's break each of those down for a second. So commitment, it shows that you are deeply passionate about something. I think there's somewhat of a myth out there that colleges want a well-rounded applicant, right? That's not true. They want a well-rounded incoming class. And the way you do that, you create this well-rounded incoming class, is by selecting individuals that are, words that are used out in the admissions consulting industry are pointy or angular. What is your angle? What are you passionate about? What do you bring to the table that someone else might? As a huge sports fan, I love drawing, sports metaphors and analogies, and I think a good one is how, as a general manager of an NBA team, for example, how do you put together a winning team? You don't want 5 shooting guards. You don't want 5 centers. You want individuals that have their own skill sets that together are better than themselves individually. So the sum is more powerful than the individual. And that's what college admissions committees are trying to do. And so this first point, this first component of the CHILL framework is all about identifying something. Doesn't matter what it is, right? We all have our own unique interests. Could be a sport, could be getting really involved in volleyball or soccer or whatever. It could be something in the community. It could be reading. It could be art. Show commitment to something because it demonstrates dedication and perseverance and resiliency, and it really clearly shows the college, hey, this is what I'm really interested in. I'm not interested in finance because my dad's an investment banker. I'm interested in finance because of reasons X, Y, and Z, whatever is that student might be committed to. The second part of the framework is happiness. A lot goes on a college campus outside of the classroom, and colleges want students that will engage in the community. And one way to demonstrate that is showing just what do you do for fun. That could be a club, but it also could be something you just do on your own. And it's important, first of all, not just to convey that you're a, quote unquote, happy student, but it's a way to also, in the research process, identify if you think that school is a good fit for you. So when you think about the things that you do for fun, myself, for example, even though it ended up being the wrong school for me, my freshman year I went to the University of Miami. And a big reason why I chose Miami, again, the wrong reasons, was that they had a scuba diving club. I had recently gotten scuba certified. I love diving. I thought maybe I'd be a marine biologist as well and connect those two things. But I saw that they had a scuba club, and that's what made me happy, was being around the ocean, being outdoors. So it was an indicator to me that it might have been a good fit. Ultimately, it wasn't. But that's a whole nother conversation. Also, let's not lose sight of the fact that if you're happy, you're healthier, you're going to be a more productive contributor to society. So constantly doing something every day that makes you happy is just going to make you a better person and a better applicant. And I'll come back around to how you can actually act on these things. So the third element is impact. Do you care about somebody and something beyond yourself? Selflessness, it's an important trait. And colleges love students that care about something that's bigger than themselves. And this is ultimately how you demonstrate how you might leave an impact on the community, on the campus, at school. So again, it's less about what you do, but more about why you do it. And then lastly is leadership. This is huge, right? Ultimately you go to college, and in your career, to get a job, and in your career you want to climb that ladder per se and demonstrate leadership. The key here isn't just saying, I'm the head of X club, It's about introspection and looking within and understanding what is your style of leadership and how can you convey to a college that when I get on campus, I'll take initiative and I will contribute. And ultimately, I think the dream for them is that you go on to be super successful and then you're some sort of legacy that they can brag about, like, the Bill Gates and Steve Jobs of the world. So this is the core framework of CHILL. Again, commitment, happiness, impact, and leadership. These are the traits that colleges want to see. Of course, you're going to need to have decent enough grades and test scores. That is a given for that institution, just to simply prove that, hey, I can handle the academic rigor. But as that statistic showed earlier, if 60% of valedictorians are getting denied, and students left and right every year getting denied from schools with perfect SAT scores and perfect 4.0s, it's a sign that they care about more than just the data points. And my hope is that this framework, you can help your teenager, again, if you are a teenager, help yourself think about what truly matters to you in life, because ultimately that's what colleges want, is what is interesting about you personally that's different than everybody else. And instead of thinking about it from the lens of what does the admissions committee want to see, you should approach your high school career through the lens of what am I interested in. And by doing that, you're going to create an authentic narrative for your application or for your child's application. And it's very important that you start early doing that and you're consistent. A lot of times, from my former work in helping people apply to these colleges, a lot of times they'd show up, end of junior year, senior year, and say, help me craft a story. But if they hadn't been doing anything, impressive or beyond the norm, we were limited in how we could help that person craft a story. So start early, get 8th, 9th grade, not thinking about what does the admissions committee want to see, or what college do I want to go to, what do I want to major in. That's putting the cart before the horse. Start by thinking about, what do I love to do? Just purely for the fun of it. What makes me happy? What am I good at? How do I connect the dots between what I'm good at, what I love to do, and what might I be able to be rewarded for in the world as a potential career? But it starts with picking something, anything, committing to it, showing the perseverance, showing the resiliency and the commitment to that thing. Again, also showing that you have a life, frankly, that is important as well, and that you care about more than yourself. And so the impact and leadership components are critical as well. And so it's all about connecting those dots, and ultimately that's what makes up a compelling narrative. So hopefully this framework in itself is something you can take away, run with however you see fit. My advice is to have, again, consistent conversations as a family unit about these things and exploring them and committing to them. But also, if you are interested as a company, as an education company at Everyday, we have developed free grade guides. So we've written these for each grade. So there's a separate grade guide for 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. And I know the screenshot there, it's hard to see, but the column on the right is the CHILL framework with thought starter questions for each grade. And so what I would recommend, it is completely free. Go to that link and download them. And as a family, print it out and talk about it. And follow those thought starters, put them somewhere where you can reflect on them, reference them, and continue to have conversations around them to guide your student down a path that is authentically their own, that they can commit to and enjoy whatever it is that they're doing, so that by the time it comes around to application season, it's not like you're scrambling to make up something. You have a clear, cohesive story to tell, because, again, from my years of experience, these are the things that matter. Of course, you have to complement it with the grades, but it's not about the grades. The grades are just there to indicate, hey, I'm not going to fail out my freshman year. That's basically what you're communicating to them with your test scores and your grades. If you've done a good enough job of that, yes, certain schools, especially the, quote unquote elite schools, are going to want to see higher scores simply to maintain their ranking, and a big factor in the ranking are those data points. But if you can tell a really compelling story across the spectrum of these four components of commitment, happiness, impact, and leadership, you're doing yourself a huge boost to your potential profile as long as you convey that message. So, in a nutshell, how do you prepare for college without the pressure? Start early and just simply strive to become the best version of yourself. And then through that process, spend the time to really think about how to tell that story in a way that would be compelling to a potential college admissions officer. Thank you.